You might like Zay Flowers from his play on the field, but when you hear what he had to say in an interview with Pete Thamel on Thursday, he's going to be your favorite Boston College player in 2022. All of this and more on today's Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. So head on over to BetOnline right now to make your sports wagers. Okay, so Zay Flowers on Thursday had a very interesting interview with Pete Thamel. Pete Thamel is like, he's on ESPN now. He is the guy that always talks to the stars. He reported that Zay Flowers turned down 2 NIL deals from competing schools that wanted him to enter the transfer portal. One school, one NIL company would have given him $600,000 to transfer to one school, and that was another deal that would have given him $300,000 to a different school. Now, this was all in that same period of time, it sounds like, around when Jordan Addison jumped from Pitt. We don't know where he's going to end up, but it was a very similar style of situation. Now, this is huge. Zay Flowers currently has some NIL deals with Boston College. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago where he was talking about his BMW he just got. And, he's got some of that money, but not $600,000 worth of money. Now, Thamel continues the conversation with him, and Flowers gives a little bit of background on his life, and I thought it was a really interesting quote. For a kid like me from a household of 14 with one parent, that's life-changing, Flowers said. I talked to Coach Halfley, and we went through what I was going on. I talked to my dad. My dad would love me to stay at BC, and I wanted to stay at BC. It was a decision I had to make, and the decision I made was to come back to school. And then he goes on to say he felt like he was being recruited, that, this was a tough decision, and he talked to Halfley about it. And, he said that money like that can help you pay for a lot of stuff, medical expenses, all types of stuff, whoever needs help at the moment. But, he said, he made a commitment to Boston College, and my word is my word, and commitment is very important. He said, talks about his dad and how his dad helped him influence him in that, don't chase the easy buck. Go with what's right. And so Flowers ends it by saying, coming back, I felt it was the best thing for me. I'm the man here. I'm going to get the ball. As long as I do what I'm supposed to do, I'm going to have the opportunity to play at the next level, which is something I dreamed about as a kid. And he talked about the power of the BC degree. This just shows me I believe in loyalty and shows my father is thinking ahead for my future. He's got my best intentions in mind. The BC degree is a lot more valuable than the degree from a lot of schools reaching out. I can make more than $600,000 with my degree and the alumni network down the road. Amen, Zay Flowers. What a story this is. With all this junk that's going on with NIL, the Jordan Addison deal, which whatever side of the fence you're on, it's gross. It's a tough situation. It's tearing apart college football when you have these NIL collaboratives basically just ripping players from their schools to go to these other schools. To have a player like Zay Flowers at your school repping Boston College, repping that he values everything that he has said to Jeff Halfley, his coaches, his word, his faith at BC, to stay here at BC. How can you not think this guy is the greatest guy on that roster right now? There's lots of good players, but Zay Flowers, he went out and made that hard decision. He went out there and he turned down big money. $600,000 is a lot of money for a kid that age. He's 22? My goodness. That would take many of us years to make that money, and he turned it down to stay a student. That is crazy. But he did it because he had his convictions. And that makes Zay Flowers something that none of these other players, not Caleb Williams, not Bryce Young, not these other guys, Jordan Addison, these other players that are running off to go get the biggest money from these booster clubs. Zay Flowers has a moral compass that you can be proud of. He is a BC man through and through, because he made a commitment to Boston College, and everything he said, everything in that article showcases what kind of education you can get at Boston College, why a guy like Zay Flowers is worthy of your praise, because he's putting the collective good in front of himself. He is putting his education in front of football. How many other football players are saying that? He's talking about how valuable that football career is, and he's not lying about that. He's making sure you know that. But he's also saying, look, I want to finish my career here because Boston College is going to make me a lot of money when I'm done. And that is impressive that he had the foresight to do something like that, because how many other players would do that? You're not going to find many. Most of them are going to chase that buck. They're going to say, screw my education, and then they're going to go to the pros. And you look at the NFL draft, right? You have 280 players get drafted, or 300 players, right? Out of 125 teams, saying that the SEC takes up about 60 of those. That really leaves your options limited. Zay Flowers is going to have his career, but we'll talk in a little bit about why other guys should be following his lead. And, for Zay, he's got some NIL deals coming through. I know he has another one, and I'm not going to get into what it is, but we're going to have a special guest next week that's not Zay Flowers, that is working with Zay on something else. But this is the perfect opportunity when you have something like this. I saw Brian Driscoll of Notre Dame tweeting about it. I saw all sorts of other writers from other programs saying, wow, what a guy. This is the opportunity that Boston College should be out there selling Zay Flowers' shirt, because remember, now with NIL, Zay Flowers would get a cut of that. You want to make Zay happy? Do that, because there's a ton of BC fans out there right now that read Pete Thamel's story and are going, I want that jersey. I want to root for Zay Flowers because he's a Boston College guy. He's a guy that wants to be here. And you know what? I'm a graduate. I want to root for this guy because he's showing me that he believes in the school that I went to. And I want to buy his jersey. And that's the best way you can support him, because then you're giving him a little bit of the cut, and you're getting your BC gear, but you're also giving Zay a cut of it. I'd love to see BC do that. I know that the jersey situation's starting up soon, so hopefully they'll get that going so he can get a little bit. But in the end of the day, we're going to talk in a little bit about why this NIL deal is a little the NIL stuff is getting a little scary, and how Jeff Hafley is going to have to hit the the recruiting trail to get his next group of guys. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take you on your family vacations. Throw them in your bags and your kids' backpacks, and make sure that everyone has a bar so you have fuel for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to go to is built.com and order now. I need to go to built.com. I'm running out in my garage. I have a whole 2 boxes of them. I'm eating all of them. Coconut almond are my 2 favorites. I have one every single day around 2:30. They're covered in chocolate. They are delicious, and they give me the protein and energy I need to make it to the end of my busy day. So go to built.com to get all of your favorites, including the new puffs. They have flavors such as banana cream pie and cinnamon churro. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. For all of you who have made us your first listen, thank you so much. And if you like our podcast, can I recommend Locked On Celtics with John Corrales? He is the reason I got into sports podcasting. I love listening to Locked On Celtics. He gets into all the things going on in their Milwaukee-Boston playoff series. He is an expert in his field. He is amazing to listen to, and he's kind of one of my idols in terms of podcasting. So check out Locked On Celtics wherever you get your podcasts. So Zay Flowers, he turns down over $500,000, allegedly, to stay with Boston College. He turns down the NIL, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And it makes me think, with this NIL stuff, these NIL collectives, where is Boston College in all of this, right? So, I see people ripping BC about this. You have to know, when you're talking the NIL collectives, it's boosters. It's not the school. It's the boosters that are doing this. There are these rich donors that are putting together all of their money to pay guys like Jordan Addison or Caleb Williams to get them to come to their school. Okay? But how does Boston College manage that? Do they have rich donors? They absolutely do. There's plenty of them out there that have quite a bit of money. You just need to find those business school graduates or some of those donors that are buying buildings for BC and have them kind of just adjust where they're going. But that's not the point of this segment. BC is going to have to figure out some things on their own. And I think this whole NIL landscape is a complete disaster right now, but that's a whole other conversation. What I'm looking at is if things continue the way they are, and hope to God they don't, because it's a mess out there right now. And it's on one hand, you want the players to get paid, but on the other hand, like the tampering and just like ripping rosters apart, it's kind of destroying the whole point of this game, but that's where it's at right now. But how does Boston College manage this? Because they got lucky. Zay Flowers is a one in a handful of guys. I doubt Phil Dracovic would have left, but you have other players that when they're going to come up, if they get lightning in a bottle somewhere, say their next big guy at any position, maybe it's the next AJ Dillon. Is he going to stay at Boston College, or is he going to hear the siren song at Alabama like Jahmyr Gibbs did and head down there? This is why recruiting is going to be so important. So when Jeff Hafley says that he wants guys that are part of his program, Boston College guys, he's not BSing you. And especially with the new way that things are going right now, he has to get guys that are completely hook, lined, and sinker in with Boston College. And those could be 4-star guys. There's guys out there. Zay Flowers is one of them. He's not a 4-star. He was a diamond in the rough. But there's guys out there that will want to play at Boston College. They'll get decent enough NIL money that they can support their family, and they'll get to play at a school with a good education. They need to find those guys, because if you're going to go battle with other schools and get guys that are just like, oh, I got a good relationship with Azar Abdul Rahim. That's it. That's all I got. That guy is going to move in a minute when he decides that he could get $150,000 from, Ohio State if he goes and moves there. Those are guys that you're going to have to worry about. The guys that are all about wanting to play for Boston College, all about the education piece, because you might be going, oh, these are football players. They're not interested in this. I'm telling you, a lot of these kids say exactly the same thing that Zay Flowers just said, where they're like, I want to go to Boston College because I want a good education. They know the differences between Mississippi State and Boston College, or, Alabama and Boston College in terms of the education you're going to get. They know that. So you need to find those kids. Hafley needs to be super precise with who he recruits, because if he gets a bunch of kids that are good but aren't bought into Boston College, they're going to leave at the first sniff of NIL money. And then he's going to have to do the thing that he has said over and over that he does not want to do, which is live and die in the transfer portal. And, we've been already starting to grade where Hafley's at and how is he doing on the field. And you're right, like he's 12-11 on the field, and that's all that matters. But look at the transfer portal this year. Look, with this explosion of NIL, who has transferred from Boston College? It has been all of the upperclassmen that weren't going to have a role with Boston College because they got an extra year of COVID eligibility. You have not seen the stars leave yet. All the good players that BC has lost has been because they just need to move on because he needs to bring in his next guys. Hafley is hitting a home run with getting the guys in here that will stick with BC. And I'm not naive to say that he's going to have guys that are going to come in that are going to be superstars and may leave if the current situation stays the way it is. But he's doing a good job at finding the guys that are going to stay, because the roster that we left in December and projected to be the roster that will be in September is relatively intact right now. You have a few guys, CJ Lewis, Kobe White, Sean Asbury, that were more, they were, bottom end of the two deep, but they're not like life changers. They're not like losing Jahmyr Gibbs at Georgia Tech or losing Caleb Williams at Oklahoma. These are guys that are just kind of like, yeah, you can absorb that. That's like typical losses there. Hafley has done a great job of finding recruits and transfers that are buying into his message and buying into being a Boston College Eagle. Now, the next piece is going to have to be making sure that the NIL stuff is starting to be competitive. You're never going to get a booster club here that's going to rival schools like Texas, Texas A&M, and USC. It's just never going to happen. But what you can do is get things going that will make them competitive to the point where players are going to go and say the same things like Zay Flowers just said, where I want to be at Boston College because I'm getting a good education, and hey, I got a new BMW to go with it too, because that's what he has. So in our final segment, Boston College hockey might have found their replacement for Jerry York. Now, it is BetOnline, your number one source for all your betting sports and sports wagers. Find all the latest sports development, league reviews, and news, including this year's baseball playoffs, Major League Baseball, and this weekend's run to the Roses as the Kentucky Derby is back. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoff esports and more. You like baseball? Hey, I'm a Boston guy. You can probably tell by my accent that sneaks in and out. But you can always get the Red Sox money line and bet against them, or bet on the under in terms of their over-under in the games, and probably get yourself a nice penny there. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Head on over to BetOnline, where the game starts. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. If you haven't done that already, you need to make sure you do that. So we're going to wrap up our NIL deal discussion here and get into hockey, which is something we've been talking a little bit about over the last couple of weeks, because Jerry York, Boston College's legendary head coach, he's retired. And now the search is on for finding his replacement. And over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a couple names linked to BC, and the first one that was linked already has declined and signed an extension. That was Mike Cavanaugh of the Yukon Huskies. And it kind of left Boston College with two reported favorites. You had Nate Lehman of Providence, who, has done a lot there with the Friars, or Greg Brown, the former Boston College associate head coach who's with the USHL Dubec Flyers, I think they are. And on Thursday, it looks like the favorite and reported winner is ready to be announced, because Nate Lehman re-signed with Providence to a long-term deal, and that just basically leaves Greg Brown. Now, if there's a mystery candidate that we haven't heard about, that could happen, but it looks like it's going to be Greg Brown. And I think a lot of people are going to get really excited about Brown, because this is going to continue the York legacy. You have a guy that has been an associate head coach with York for years, that knows how to run his system, knows how to recruit. And I think it was Grant Salzano of BC Interruption that had a great statistic up that will really solidify why you might be excited about Greg Brown. Grant tweeted, with Greg Brown as assistant, BC had 11 NCAA tournaments in 14 years, 14 out of 14 seasons above 500. Since Greg Brown left, one NCAA tournament in 4 years and 2 out of 4 seasons above 500. So kind of shows where, his talent has been. Now, that could just be roster and things like that, but it looks like he's done a lot. And, I'm sure this is going to get the Jerry York seal of approval. And yeah, Nate Lehman would have been a splashier pick. He had a national championship with the Friars, But Greg Brown, he's got his experience too, and he has a national championship as an assistant under Jerry York. So he's not chopped liver here. And I have to say, I like BC's choice, Greg Brown, over their rivals, Boston University, who just signed Jay Pandolfo, who was a assistant with the Bruins, played with the Bruins, obviously a BU legendary player. He's got NHL experience, which is good, but I like Brown because he's got the college chops. That's a bigger deal to me, and I like BC's hire here. But this is such a big moment for BC's program, because it's been 30 years since Jerry York with Jerry York as head coach. It feels like we're into uncharted territory here. So it's going to be Brown. It looks like that's going to be the answer there, and what he does will be interesting, because BU's already had 5 head coaches since Parker retired. So will BC fall into that same trap, or is Brown the answer, and he's going to really drive home the same message that Jerry York did? We'll have to wait and see. Well, thank you all for listening. On Monday's show, we're going to get into some more talk about recruiting. There's some transfer portal news that we're going to want to get into, and anything that happens over this weekend, we'll get into as well. And for those of you about the Zay Flowers thing as well, before I jump off, the transfer portal is basically closed now. You have to declare by May 1st. So there's no way Zay Flowers, no team's going to up the ante and get him off. He's with Boston College next year. It's over. So anyways, you can follow me on Twitter at LockedOnBC. You can make sure to follow us on YouTube and leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It really does make a difference. Thank you all and have a great weekend. And to all the mothers out there that listening, I know there's some out there, have a happy Mother's Day, and I hope you have a nice weekend as well. Take care.